I have a question about the Commission's response to what the Chinese Commerce Ministry announced today, threatening basically retaliation in response to Europe's proposed Made in Europe measures. So I was wondering what the Commission's response is to that. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Tom. I would say that our response is very simple. Our policy offerings, our policy proposals that we make as the European Commission on behalf of the European Union are carefully calibrated to achieve certain economic and wider goals for our citizens, for our businesses. We engage with our global partners to the extent possible in the design and elaboration of those policies. We are happy to engage with our global partners to hear their views on our policies, and that's really all we have to say on it for today. Follow up.
Yeah, just one thing. So one of the allegations that China made was about, they said that this the Industrial Accelerator Act violated this most-favoured-nation WTO principle. Commissioner Šefčovič has also suggested that the Commission maybe doesn't support MFN anymore. I was just wondering what the Commission's view is on the allegation that the Industrial Accelerator Act violates the MFN, and also just in general what its views are on the MFN. Thank you.
I'll let Siobhan start, and I might compliment from the trade side as well. Go ahead, Siobhan.
Thanks, Thomas. I'm looking for you there. Indeed. I just want to recall a little bit what the objectives of the Industrial Accelerator Act are. This is an industrial policy. It's something that President von der Leyen has herself mentioned in many of her speeches because it delivers on our competitiveness, resilience, and economic security agendas. And of course, one of the goals is to reduce our dependencies on third countries and to promote the uptake of Made in EU. In particular, as you've seen, in a number of key sectors where we are trying to reduce our dependencies. And it's, of course, also about reciprocity. I mean, we've been quite clear that the goal of one of the objectives of the proposal is that we are one of the most open markets in the world, and we have the largest free trade agreement network worldwide. We're a party to the government procurement agreement under the WTO. And so we also expect that openness to be mutual. I wonder if, Olaf, if you want to comment on that?
I think you've put it perfectly, Siobhan. I would simply add from the wearing my trade hat that the Commission on behalf of the European Union takes every possible step to ensure that all our legislation is fully in line with our own internal as well as our international obligations, including at the World Trade Organization. We've always done so, and we will always continue to do so. Other questions for Siobhan, as she is on the podium with me now. David, is it for Siobhan? No? OK, I'll come back to you. Don't see other questions for Siobhan, so we'll open the floor for other topics. Christian.
Thanks, Olaf. Not sure if this is for you or for Anna-Kaisa. It's on the college agenda and the planning for the week. Amendments adopted to the deforestation regulation in December foresees a simplification review by 30th of April, so that's on Thursday. So I was wondering, are you planning to present the review this week as required under the regulation? Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. I'll hand this one over to Anna-Kaisa.
We will be presenting this review in the next days. I don't have the exact date, but I can tell you it's not Friday. Does that help your planning?
Thank you, Anna-Kaisa. Do we have other questions for Anna-Kaisa? David.
Hi. The German Minister, Agriculture Minister Alois Rainer, called for a good proposal from the Commission on this EUDR. I was just wondering, you know, what can we expect in that? Will he be happy, the German Minister? And then more generally, he said he doesn't expect you to reopen the deforestation regulation. Can you confirm that you're not going to be reopening the thing?
What I can confirm that it will be a good proposal. Whether people will be happy or not, that I can't speak on their behalf. So it will be coming in the next days. There will be a review report. So correct, we're not opening it. The deforestation regulation. There will be a review report, frequently asked questions, guidance and a delegated act on the scope and implementing act on the IT measures. This is the package, and it is now being finalised, and we will be presenting it to you in due course.
Thank you, Anna-Kaisa. Follow-up, David.
So that was rather quick on that reopening. Can you just confirm you are not reopening the EUDR? Thanks.
We will not reopen the European Union deforestation regulation.
Thank you for that very clear and concise answer, Anna-Kaisa. Philip.
Thank you. Philip Edosluin with the Norwegian Media Energy Klima. It's on a slightly different topic, but on disinformation around green energy or renewable energy. Wind Europe last week published a report mapping the extent of disinformation on particularly wind energy in Europe, showing that there's a vast network of accounts spreading disinformation and misinformation surrounding wind energy. And the Wind Europe comes with a series of recommendations, notably to ensure that social media platforms contain this disinformation. So what is the European Commission doing in general to counter disinformation regarding green energy? Thank you.
My colleagues who might be able to complement this, what we are doing in general to counter disinformation, there exists quite a bit of that, especially as regards energy and climate issues. I have not seen the full extent to the Wind Europe report. There was an event last week. I understand this was presented there. It is one of cornerstones for our renewable energy strategy. We work very, very closely also with third countries like the United Kingdom as well as Norway to really ramp up wind energy and renewables generally, also on the around North Sea, Baltic Sea. And unfortunately, there tends to be a fair bit of disinformation, and therefore the collaboration that we have with our partner countries who meet in different formations quite regularly, actually. This is one of the topics that is being discussed, and then obviously what we can do is to ensure that our communication is quite clear on what we are doing, that it is passed on to all our stakeholders, that our member states, governments, as well as those who are active in the sector remain available for media questions, to educate the audience, the wider audience on this. But of course, as regards the disinformation strategy that the Commission has, obviously we have a much more coherent, organised strategy to tackle this. But you're quite right that especially in the field of climate action and energy, there is quite a bit of disinformation making the rounds, and obviously from our side we try to do as much as we can as a public institution, but we are also engaging our partners who are active in this field, and in this case wind power, wind energy.
Thank you, Anna-Kaisa. And Philip, your question presents us with an opportunity to really remind you about the importance we place and the very substantial resources we invest as the European Commission into pushing back against misinformation and disinformation whenever we see it, particularly around our European Union and beyond. So we have dedicated teams working on these topics in DG Communication. We leverage our network of representations in each member state to feed to us information as they scan and track it around misinformation and disinformation, and we engage with them and we give them the tools and resources to push back at national level. So this is something we take extremely seriously. It's something that can't be dealt with enough, and our approach is very much a hands-on one to try and ensure that our citizens and you, the journalists, have accurate information, have evidence-based data with which to do your work, make your decisions and understand what's happening here at the Commission. Other questions for Anna-Kaisa? No, thank you, Anna-Kaisa. Other questions for us today, Jorge?
Hello, Olof. Over the weekend, French President Emmanuel Macron talked about the EU budget and the Recovery Fund, and the debt that we have accumulated as a result, and he said it would be absurd to start repaying the debt in the next EU budget as you have proposed as Commission. And he said, let's extend this debt or move to new bond issuance. So my question to you is, does the Commission support in any way an extension of the recovery fund? And do you think this debt should be repaid in the next budget or sometime in the future that is still to be determined? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Jorge. This may fall between several spokes, but Balázs will kick us off and we can see if additional colleagues are required. Go ahead, Balázs.
Yeah, at this stage my answer would be rather short to this question. So if you look at NextGenEU, of which RRF is a part, I think it's been said on a number of occasions that this is a one-off tool, and that's the way we look at it at this point in time. What is, however, very important nowadays is to look at the way in which we are going to reimburse the debt that we have raised under Next Generation EU, and in that regard we put on the table a number of new own resources proposals, and I think the President also took the occasion in Cyprus to remind us of the importance of making progress on the introduction of these new own resources.
Thank you, Balázs. Follow-up, Jorge.
Yes, thank you, Balázs. Indeed, it was a one-off, but it could be extended if there's political will or not. I mean, what is the process to extend this legally beyond 26 if there's political will from member states? Can it be done? Can the Commission go beyond 26? What's going to happen with the money that you have raised after 26? Does it disappear? Thank you.
On the technicalities, I believe that we need to raise all the funding related to NextGenEU by the end of 2026. So this is the rule that at this point in time we will be abiding by. And as you say, the way NextGenEU has been calibrated was responding to a political decision that was taken at the end of 2020, if I recall well. So for us to look at any future plans, again, there would have to be a political decision. So it is in this light that we approach this question at this point in time.
Thanks very much, Balázs. Matthew, do you need to complement anything as I've heard? Okay, great. Other questions for Balázs on the EU budget or the other topics he covers, which are many? Don't see hands raised in the room or online. Thank you, Balázs. Other questions for us today? Down here, please.
My name is Tibor Udvarhely. I'm working for the Hungarian television, and I'm not quite sure if the question I'm going to ask is for Balázs or not. But over the weekend, there was another round of negotiations between the future Hungarian government and the Commission. And I would like to ask you if there was any progress during the talks and what can be made public about the current state of these negotiations. And on Wednesday, there is going to be another round of talks, even if it is not in the President's agenda, certainly because it is informal talks. It's on the highest level with Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and the Prime Minister-designate Péter Magyar. What is the purpose of those talks, and perhaps already finalize a possible agreement, or there are some disagreements which can be overcome on a higher level? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. I appreciate that there is great interest in these meetings, and I fully understand that you would like us to provide more detail on the subject matter of those meetings and the progress being made. Unfortunately, because we're talking here about, as you mentioned, a government designate, a Prime Minister designate, we're not going to provide any detail beyond what we have said previously, which is that these meetings are fully focused on how to move forward, how to make meaningful progress on notably unblocking EU funds that are earmarked for Hungary. And the Commission's perspective on this is very simple. We want to engage in a very structured, in a very focused way with the incoming Hungarian government to make sure that at the earliest stage, every action that needs to be taken is taken, so that the people of Hungary, for whose benefit those funds were intended, can benefit from them at the earliest stage. At the point where there's more to say, we will say more, but for now, we're not going to say anything beyond that. So thank you for your patience. Other questions on this topic? Vitaly.
Vitaly Sizov, Freedom TV channel. Just to clarify, will this agenda include the veto issues connected with Ukraine? Will you discuss with the leader of opposition who won election the problem of blocking EU accession for Ukraine and other veto issues connected with Ukraine and Hungary? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Vitaly, but I'm not going to provide any more detail beyond what I have already done. There may be more to say after the meeting between President von der Leyen and Prime Minister-designate Magyar on Wednesday, but until then, I've said what we have to say. Thanks for your understanding. Other questions for us today? Go ahead.
Nathan Canas for DW. I have a question, I guess, for Marcus. Does the European Union plan to invite a Taliban delegation to Brussels this summer to discuss the deportation of Afghan nationals currently in Europe?
Come on up, Marcus. I'm not sure we have an answer to your question, but if we do, Marcus will have it.
Hi, thanks for the question. This is something we've discussed already last week, but I'm happy to reiterate. And as I've said last week, I cannot confirm that a meeting with the de facto authorities from Afghanistan is scheduled to take place in Brussels or that an invitation has been sent regarding this. However, what I can confirm, and that's not new, is that contacts at technical level are ongoing. These contacts take place following a joint letter by 20 interior and migration ministers from October last year. In this letter, ministers called for enhanced EU support for returns to Afghanistan and on the Commission, they called also on the Commission and the External Action Service to coordinate technical contacts with the de facto authorities in Afghanistan on returns. And the ministers underline, and that's important to say, is that this is in particular about persons who have no right to stay in the Union and who pose a security threat, persons who pose a security threat. So this is what the Commission is now following up on. Let me maybe also remind you what President von der Leyen said in her letter to leaders in December last year. Returns to politically sensitive countries, particularly to Afghanistan, which still faces an acute humanitarian and human rights situation, pose challenges that need to be addressed comprehensively and in a coordinated manner. So this is what we're doing. We're currently working on the follow-up to a mission, a technical level mission that has taken place in January, and which is in line with the Council conclusions, by the way. Maybe another point on this, as a reminder, every return decision is an individual decision by member state authorities. It needs to be an individual decision, and it follows a full assessment, in most cases, of asylum cases. So only persons that have no right to stay in the EU fall under the EU return rules. And of course, so this is a member state competence, a return, and for member state authorities to decide and also to carry out. And this has to be done in line with EU and international law, including in particular fundamental rights.
Thank you, Marcus. Follow-up.
Maybe a quick follow-up. If so, would such a move amount to a restoration of diplomatic relations with the Taliban government in Afghanistan, or no, it's just like on a technical level?
You can get a very brief reply from me. This is a clear no. But Anwar is already ready to take any follow-up questions should you need more. But that's not what's happening.
Thank you, Marcus. Other questions for Marcus? Please go ahead.
Hi there, Chris Powers from the Kiev Independent. I wanted to follow up on the special tribunal for the crime of aggression at the Council of Europe, where the EU is hoping to be a signatory in its own right. My understanding is that it was sent to the working parties to be discussed, but one of them now won't have another meeting until after the Council of Europe summit in May. So I was wondering, have these working parties now given their go-ahead? Are we closer to having EU membership of this tribunal in its own right? Thank you.
Thanks, Chris, for the question. I think you also asked us in writing, but I can give you a reply here. So As you know, in March, the Commission adopted a proposal initiating the process for the European Union to become a founding member of the Special Tribunal. This follows the adoption in February 2025 of a proposal for the European Union to become a founding member of the International Claims Commission of Ukraine. So these are two different strands, but both equally important. Both these proposals now need to be adopted by member states in the Council and then approved by Parliament. And what you described just here now is the process in the Council. And I would ask you for any details on what's happening in the Council to ask the Council.
Thank you, Marcus. Other questions for Marcus? Thank you, Marcus. Other questions for us today? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Arthur Bamas from Context. I have a question on Mercosur. Last week, the Council of the EU adopted an implementing act proposed by the Commission regarding the tariff rate quotas under the agreement with Mercosur. If I understand correctly, it is not the European, but rather the Brazilian authorities who will have the power to allocate these quotas to Brazilian companies that export, for example, beef. So my question is, why did you decide to switch to this system of certificates of origin managed by Brazil? And aren't you concerned that this will further concentrate quotas in the hands of a few large companies that are very competitive, such as the livestock giant GBS? Thank you.
Hi Arthur, and thank you for your question. Sorry, 2 seconds. So firstly, I'd like to clarify that the European Commission has extensive and long-standing experience managing tariff rate quotas as part of its trade policy mandate, exercised on behalf and with the full approval of member states in the Council. The EU retains full and exclusive authority over TRQ management, allocation among EU importers, issuance of import licenses, and monitoring of imports are all governed by EU rules and carried out by EU authorities alone. Import licenses will be issued in full accordance with EU rules, ensuring transparency, legal certainty, and equal access for all eligible operators. Mercosur authorities play no role in this process. Only exporters capable of meeting all EU sanitary and phytosanitary requirements are, and will remain, eligible to export to the EU under these quotas. This is a firm condition. The Mercosur Quota Authorization Certificate, referenced in Article 3.30 of the interim agreement, which I think you referred to, is one of the 2 documents required to accompany all imports under the Mercosur tariff rate quotas, the other being a certificate of origin. Its sole purpose is to allow Mercosur countries to track how much of the quota each of them has used. It confers no entitlement and creates no obligation to the EU side.
Many thanks for that, Louise. Do we have other questions on this topic for Louise? Please go ahead.
Hello, Blaž Mohorčič with the Slovenian press agency. It's on Mercosur. On Friday it will start to apply provisionally. I would like to know if it's with all 4 members of Mercosur or only 3 of them.
Thank you for your question. To the best of my knowledge, it's all 4. All 4 have completed their respective ratification procedures before the end of March, meaning that all 4 will be party to provisional application as of the 1st of May. Other questions on Mercosur for Louise or indeed for me? I don't see hands in the room or online. Other questions for Louise on topics she covers? Thank you, Louise. Other topics for us today? Go ahead.
Hi, Olaf. You know, the global summit flotilla has set sail last night from Italy with the aim of delivering humanitarian aid to Gaza by breaking the Israeli blockade. As you may already know, the United Nations and other humanitarian agencies are constantly warning against the dire humanitarian situation on the Strip. So, considering the violations that the flotilla faced, whether it be on international waters or the detention of activists last year. I would like to know if you have a call to Israeli authorities regarding the flotilla or the general humanitarian situation in Gaza. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Our general position on the situation in Gaza is quite clear. Anwar can come up and reiterate it to you if you want. And on the flotilla specifically, I invite Eva to respond.
Thank you for the question. Good afternoon to everybody. What I can say is that we are in regular contact with the member states, with Israel, regarding the humanitarian situation in Gaza, and we constantly call for an unimpeded access to Gaza to be able to deliver our humanitarian aid. While we respect the humanitarian commitment of all the people on board of the flotilla, I have to say that we discourage flotillas from this kind of delivery because they risk safety of the participants. So in the EU, obviously, we have such a right to exercise such activism, and we have the freedom of assembly, also the navigation in the law about the navigation in international waters must be upheld. And so this is the basic rules that apply to the flotillas in general.
Thank you, Eva. Follow-up?
When you say discourage the flotillas, are you saying that, are you against, for example, the global small flotilla in this case?
No, I say that we support principled delivery of the humanitarian aid that we practice in Gaza. We work with our partners, and in fact we have the same goal. We want to get food and necessary equipment to Gaza and to alleviate the suffering of the people there.
Thank you for that, Eva. Up here.
Angela Mauro of Post Italy on this. As you say, you discourage the flotilla to go because they risk their life. Linked to this, is there anything you ask Israel not to do towards the flotilla? Thanks.
Thank you for your question, but Eva has already provided the answer, and we're not going to say anything more on this topic today. Do we have other questions for Eva? I don't see hands raised in the room or online. Other questions for us today? Odile.
Oui, merci Olaf. Ce week-end, suite au départ de la milice russe Wagner et à l'assassinat du ministre de la Défense à Bamako, la situation au Mali est de plus en plus préoccupante, notamment au nord du pays, à Kidal, à Goa, et en outre le manque d'eau aggrave sérieusement la situation pour les populations civiles qui sont les premières victimes de ce conflit et de la rapide détérioration climatique au Sahel. Quelle réaction et quelle réponse politique et peut-être humanitaire aussi pouvez-vous apporter à cette grave situation? Merci.
Merci Odile pour ta question. Je m'exprimerai sur le plan politique et ma collègue Eva est la bienvenue si nous avons quoi que ce soit ajouté sur le plan humanitaire. Mais permets-moi d'abord de commencer en condamnant fermement les attaques terroristes perpétrées le 25 avril dernier au Mali. Nous adressons nos sincères condoléances aux familles des victimes ainsi qu'aux autorités maliennes et exprimons notre pleine solidarité avec le peuple malien. Nous réaffirmons notre détermination claire dans la lutte contre le terrorisme ainsi que notre engagement en faveur de la paix, la sécurité et la stabilité au Mali ainsi que dans l'ensemble du Sahel.
Merci Anwar. D'autres questions pour Anwar? Momchil, are you online? Is this for Anwar? No. Lailuma, est-ce que ta question est pour Anwar?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Just a follow-up question about Taliban invited to Belgium or, in Brussels. There's a lot of discussion and also concern about the inviting the Taliban in Europe. The question is, the Taliban are not a legitimate government, and the relation of diplomatic, what does it mean? It means that they are normalizing this. And also the other question, the people of Afghanistan talking about humanitarian aid, but also there is human rights violation. When you are inviting a group that they are not respecting any rule, does EU make like a double standard? What's your answer? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. I think that my great colleague, Marcus, already answered on your point, but allow me here to elaborate further, because I think that an elaboration is needed here. The EU is mandated by the Council to maintain operational engagement with the de facto authorities in Afghanistan. What does this mean? This does not mean, and by any means, recognition. So this is clear. Allow me to also recall that in terms of presence on the ground, the EU maintains presence on the ground, and this to facilitate contacts, monitor the situation, assist EU member states, and continue providing support for the benefit of the Afghan people.
Thank you very much, Anwar. Do we have other questions for Anwar? Is it for Anwar, Vitaly? It's for Far. Well, try it there and we'll see. Oh, sorry, before you do, I have a follow-up from Lailuma.
Yes, thank you. The question is also because in the same topic that Germany and also some other countries, they start by technical inviting the Taliban, and then finally they give the embassy for the Taliban. So I'm afraid that this case happened again in many other European countries, like Belgium. Already they have concern.
Lailuma, what's your question, please? Lailuma, what is your question, please?
The question is that the people of Afghanistan are concerned that if they're normalizing their diplomatic relation, it means that they give many other embassies to Taliban. What do you think about that?
I think we've been quite clear that the if in your question does not hold, and we'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Anwar. Then we can go to you, Vitaly.
Thank you. Vitaly Sizov Freedom. I think it's more for Anita. It's on initiative to extend the list of those who are responsible for abduction of Ukrainian children. Could you confirm that High Representative initiated extension of this list and now it's discussed inside diplomacy corpus? Thank you.
Thanks, Vitaly. Anita's on her way up to answer your question.
Thank you, Vitaly. Let's go back to the context, and this is that since the start of the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine, more than 20,000 Ukrainian children have been unlawfully deported and also forcibly transferred to Russia and also the temporarily occupied territories. This is a despicable practice which must stop, and the return of these children remains a top priority for the EU, as expressed also by the President von der Leyen and also the High Representative. And to come back to your question, what is that we're doing? We're increasing the pressure on sanctions, with the sanctions on Russia. So just last week we had the 20th package of sanctions where we have targeted indeed 6 more individuals. So right now we have more than 100 individuals listed, including Putin, but also including the the Russian Commissioner for Children's Rights, so-called children's rights, Maria Lvova-Belova. What we're also doing, apart from the sanctions and listing those individuals, we're also working side by side with our partners to make sure that every Ukrainian children returns home. So according to the Ukrainian authorities, we have by now 2,100 Ukrainian children that were unlawfully taken by Russia that have returned to Ukraine. And out of these, 150 have been returned this year. And as of next step, on the 11th of May, the High Representative and the Commissioner Kos will also host a high-level meeting to further support the Ukrainian children back to Ukraine, and this will be co-led with Canada and Ukraine at ministerial level. We'll also focus on very concrete actions as a follow-up of this meeting, namely securing the returns of the children, helping them also recover and rebuild their lives, and in particular also holding Russia accountable for these heinous acts.
Thank you, Anita, for this very clear and comprehensive answer. Please go ahead.
Hi, Anita. Just to follow up on the 11th of May meeting, I'm wondering if, given its clear, pronounced interest on the topic, if the US was invited at all to be part of this meeting, to organize it or to attend somehow. And by clear interest, I mean Melania Trump's repeated expressions on the topic. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll come back with this information if I have something more at hand, but right now I don't, and in any case it is for the US to confirm it.
Thank you, Anita. Other questions for Anita? No, thank you, Anita. Other questions for us today? Vitaly, I'll come back to you if I don't have other questions. Go ahead.
Thank you, Nicholas Komai, for your active. The first one is more procedural, so probably for you. I just want to know whether there's a legal obligation for commissioners to update their calendars, and if not, is there like a guiding code of practice, and who is in charge of enforcing it? And secondly, it's a question, I think, for Louise, on whether the Commission will make a proposal to allow member states to zero-rate electricity taxes amidst the ongoing energy crisis. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nikolaos. I mean, the transparency obligations for commissioners and for their cabinets and for high-ranking management in the European Commission are publicly known, available online. I would encourage you to dig them out there. I can bring someone up to answer them now if you want, but I mean, this is publicly available information. They are obliged to update their calendars according to the rules. It's simple. Who would enforce it? I'll bring Balázs up to answer it, but I mean there are, as I said, the obligations are clear, and as regards enforcement, maybe Balázs has something to observe.
What I can add to that is that indeed we update the calendars. So, I mean, they update their calendars every week, indicating the activities and meetings that are coming up. But is there an obligation to put every single meeting in a calendar? No, they are not under obligation to put every single meeting that is going to take place. So this is the way in which we look at this.
Thanks, Balázs. Moses, do you want to ask a question on this topic? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Olof. I would like to ask a follow-up question about transparency, because as you know, European Ombudsman issued last week his annual report on its activities, and it shows a very big increase in number of complaints, especially when it comes to, let's say, applications for access to documents and information from all the EU institutions. And you get the impression from that report that when it comes to European Commission, I mean, the different DGs are not applying, I mean, the rules in the same way, which leads to very often to reactions without any motivation of applications for documents, for example, from us journalists. So I wonder if there is some internal, let's say, procedure or, let's say, cell of some kind which is trying, let's say, to supervise and ensure, let's say, equal treatment by all DGs of such applications.
Thank you, Mose. Before I hand over to Balázs, I just want to say something in response to the line of questioning you've brought forward there. Point one, the European Commission is, by any objective standard, applying the highest calibre, the highest standards of transparency, of good governance, of access to document systems, of any public institution in the world. I defy you or anyone else to show me someone who does it in a more substantial way. And so that's point one. Point two is that we are constantly striving to see how we can improve the system even further, which is why, as I mentioned in my previous contribution, that we have extended the rules in recent years as regards access to documents, meetings, etc., to also apply to senior managers in the Commission. So it's not just commissioners and their cabinets, but senior managers. So that's the baseline for what we're doing. Point 3, we receive a colossal amount of access to documents and other transparency requests. And with the resources we have, we endeavour to reply to them as quickly and as comprehensively as possible. And all the statistical analysis shows that we succeed in doing so. Are there complaints at times? Yes, of course. That will always be the case in any public institution doing the type of important work that the European Commission does and receiving, as I mentioned, the colossal amounts of access to documents requests it receives. But the standards are extremely, extremely high, and they should be judged on that basis. And with that, I hand over to Balázs.
Who has nothing to add on this point? Maybe the fact that we do receive a lot of requests. I think we know both very well, and every single request is processed. And sometimes it takes a little bit more time to coordinate with respective services, but we do process every single request.
Many thanks, Balázs. Do we have other questions for Balázs? No, thank you, Balázs. Other questions for us today? I'll take Momchil first, and I'll come back to you, Vitaly. Momchil, go ahead.
Hello. Good afternoon. Do you see me?
Momchil, I hear you, but I don't see you. And now I don't even hear you.
And what about now? Can I speak or not?
Momchil, you know the rules.
Yes.
We need to be able to see you. You're a repeat offender. We love you, but we need to be able to see you. Okay, other questions for us today. Vitaly.
Vitaly Sizov, Freedom. On enlargement, President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky said that he expected to open negotiation till this June. From your perspective, is it real, and he is going to finish all this, open all cluster till the end of this year? Is it real for now?
Thank you for your question, Vitaly. Guillaume is on his way up.
Hi, good afternoon. I think when it comes to accession in Ukraine, we have been very clear from the podium many times. Ukraine has done everything that it was required to actually open the first cluster and the other clusters. No, we always start with the fundamentals. Ukraine has advanced on key reforms, even though we have a very challenging context. And we have seen extremely important progress. This is already highlighted in the enlargement report that we published last year, and we have repeated several times. Even the president in Cyprus last week, she also stressed this point. So when it comes to now the calendar, we, on our side, the Commission, we have done everything that was possible. From the technical side, we have sent all the documents to the Council, so the Council can now open, the Member States can now open Cluster 1 as soon as they want. So the calendar is not in our hands. On our side, we'll continue to support the Member States and Ukraine in this process, and actually we call on them to follow up quickly.
Thank you, Guillaume. Valeria.
Valeria Pashko, Public Broadcaster of Ukraine. Follow-up. Only if cluster one is ready for the opening, or all the clusters are ready. And my question is on Ukraine facility also. Prime Minister of Ukraine just announced that Ukraine is going to receive the next tranche of 2.7 billion euros. Can you confirm that? And has the Ukrainian government already submitted the request to obtain this money? And also, could you please remind us how much money left in this under the Ukraine Facility Fund? Thanks.
So on this 2.7 billion, I can confirm that indeed Ukraine has submitted its request for payment. So we are now processing the request for payment. I cannot provide you now with the assessment and the dates, but you will be informed in due course once we have done all this work. When it comes to the Ukraine facility, as it is now, as it stands now, the 50 billion that we had initially planned, then there will be, obviously from the Ukraine loan, there will be some additional top-up, but from the 50 billion, if I'm not mistaken, I just need to look. So under the first pillar, so far we have reached 26.8 billion. So the first pillar, meaning the Ukraine plan and all the reforms that have to be completed. So 26.8.
Thank you, Guillaume. Other questions for Guillaume? Jorge?
Yes, following up on enlargement, we know that the Commission for several months was trying to find a new way to grant membership to Ukraine outside of the traditional concept of membership. We remember this so-called reverse membership that was shut down by member states. And last week, Friedrich Merz said that, for instance, Ukraine could join the European Union without voting rights. But at the same time, Zelensky said that he doesn't need any symbolic membership for his country. So is the Commission still working on a special status for Ukraine, something tailor-made for the country, or you believe that because of what member states have been saying, traditional membership is the only way forward? Thank you.
Thanks for your question, Jorge. Look, first of all, just to point out and remind you that we don't comment on comments, so we're not going to answer your question in that sense. What we can recall is that both President von der Leyen, Commissioner Koss and others in the Commission have basically for months been raising the topic of enlargement, possible reflections on how we can apply different approaches, and that is as it should be given the geopolitical context we all know we're in. So as far as I'm aware, that reflection work is ongoing, unless there's more to provide at this stage. Guillaume.
Indeed, I can only refer again to something very important that the President mentioned last week, is that we have principles of enlargement, and everything is based on this merit-based approach, and this is something that we've been stressing. When it comes to the bigger picture on enlargement, Olof has explained, indeed, there is also a geopolitical context, and we always need to ensure that enlargement is fit for purpose, and it is in this context that we're having, that member states are having also this discussion, and we're ready to continue the discussion with them.
So just to really reinforce what Guillaume has just said, President von der Leyen was very clear on this topic in the informal UCO and in the other discussions over the weekend. We stick to the merit-based approach. That is the sine qua non, and within that, reflections are ongoing about other potential ways to look at this very important topic. Other questions for Guillaume? David.
Thank you, David Carretta, Radio Radicale. It's a follow-up on the issue of internal reforms to prepare for the next enlargement, because the issue was put on the agenda of, on the liste de points prévus already in October. Then it was moved in November with some proposal from the Commission to prepare the European Union for enlargement. Then it was postponed, and you said in that podium that a proposal will come in the next weeks. Now we are a month away. There has been European Council conclusion asking to the European Commission, if I remember well, in October or in December, doesn't care, about this communication and to deliver some proposal to prepare the EU for the next enlargement. What is preventing you to put this proposal on the table? The reflection is ongoing, but it's taking quite a lot of time. So I'm wondering what's the reason behind this delay? Thank you.
Thanks for your question, David. All I can say at this point is that we are working on it. Sometimes things take a bit of time. And that's really all we're going to say about that today. Other questions for Guillaume? Don't see hands in the room or online. Other questions for us today? Yes, Nikolaos, thank you for reminding me after I forgot again. Your second question from earlier was to Louise. If you wouldn't mind repeating it, that would be great.
So, Nicholas Comay, for your active, the question first would be whether the Commission has taken notice of demands from Member States to propose slashing electricity taxes below the EU minimum, which is currently possible under the legal framework in Article 19 of the Energy Taxation Directive, and whether the Commission will propose such a thing.
Thank you for your question. I will remind you of the Accelerate EU communication that was published last week, where the Commission's toolbox to bring immediate relief, the Commission's toolbox to bring immediate relief to European households and industries, especially the most vulnerable ones, while putting Europe on a steady pathway to energy independence. In this context, and as mentioned in this communication, indeed the Commission will also present a legislative proposal on taxation in May, ensuring that electricity is taxed less than fossil fuels. As this is at a stage of proposal, I can't comment further into what exactly this proposal will be.
Thanks very much. Follow up, Nikolaos.
Sorry, my question relates to the existing legal framework, where the Commission is being asked to make a legal proposal for Member States individually to be able to set the tax rate to 0.
Maybe it'll be easier if I come back to you afterwards, because I would need to check. Thank you.
Okay, many thanks, Louise. Do we have other questions for Louise as she's back on the podium? No, I don't think so. Thank you, Louise. Other questions for us today? Mom Chill, show me your lovely face.
I'll try. I hope you see me now.
Yes, sir. I see you and hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a lovely question. The deadline is nearing for Bulgaria to get or to lose 2,015 million euros from the second payment under the RRF. Does Bulgaria still have a chance to get this money which are withheld by the European Commission or not?
Thank you, Momchil. This is a question for Maciej, who joins me on stage now.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you, Momchil, for your question. So what I can tell you is that Bulgaria submitted a request to revise its recovery plan last week, following the exchanges with the Commission. And the revision includes a proposal to postpone the deadlines for the implementation of 2 milestones related to the Anti-Corruption Commission, for which the payment was earlier suspended. The first milestone relates to the setting up of a politically independent anti-corruption body. And according to the proposed revision, the implementation of these milestones would be moved from the second to the fourth payment request. And the second milestone is about making this anti-corruption body operational, and it would be moved from the third to the fifth payment request. We have to admit that Bulgaria has already made credible steps to ensure the implementation of. On the 16th of April this year, the caretaker government adopted a revised draft law on the Anti-Corruption Commission, which could in principle address the suspension. So now what we will do on our side, we'll assess the revision and will make a proposal for the Council decision to reflect the changes in the Bulgarian recovery plan.